You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And we are live. We'll give it just a couple minutes to breathe so that John can give us the Facebook group. Looks like we're good to go. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. And welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson. And joining me on this very special day is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider, Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst. He's the birthday boy himself. First things first, happy birthday to my brother and my best friend. Well, one of my best friends anyways, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, man? How's your day going so far?
It's going pretty good. I mean, obviously, as you said, it's my birthday today, turning the big ol', I'm going to say 20 years old because that's where I stopped aging. I'm 29 years ago, actually, the earth split open and the devil decided to throw me out. So now I'm here. But yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a pretty good day, and I'm excited to get here and be talking about football. I wish that things were a little bit better for today, but we'll get through that, and we'll get to this live mock that we're going to be doing, which hopefully you guys enjoy. We had a great time doing them last year, and I know that a lot of people who tuned in for them had a great time doing them as well.
Yeah, man, these are such a great idea. They're so much fun. We've got the Broncos live seven round mock draft running on the Draft Network's mock draft simulator. What the deal is here, guys, is we're going to be your scouting department. Well, Erick's going to be your scouting department. I'm going to be the general manager, and your guys' input on today's draft picks are going to be what kind of gears us to how we think this Broncos draft is going to go. We're going to make the picks for you guys, essentially. But before we get into that, guys, I do got to get into some quick matters of business here. You guys are watching the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can follow us both on Twitter by following me at Sanderson MHH and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, while you guys are at it, follow at DVDD_pod. Also at Mile High Huddle for instant news and analysis on your Denver Broncos. From all your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities like myself, like Erick, Nick Kendall, Carl Dumler, Luke Patterson, Chad and Zach, all the guys at Mile High Huddle. That's where you're going to find all.
Sorry, did you just say favorite personalities and mention Nick?
I mean, there's some people that actually like Nick outside of us, but yeah, I mean, he's at least one of those people. Anyways, guys, if you're in a financial a place financially where you can go and support the show at Huddle Up Pod, that's huddleuppod.com. That's where you guys can get yourself a hat, a t-shirt. There's a face mask, a coffee cup, a hoodie, anything that suits your fancy. There's a onesie for your baby if you want that. Facebook supporters, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and click the blue Become a Supporter button. It's another great way to support the show. And as always, if you're not able to do anything like that, not willing to do something like that, the three easiest things you can do to support Mile High Huddle and the Huddle Up Podcast Network is to subscribe wherever you guys are watching this, on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. It does not matter. Apple Podcasts, if that's where you want to go get your content, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like every video that you guys see. And if you love it, share it. Share it out to the masses. And our last little order of business here, John, I'm going to pull up the picture here and then grab the read as well. Maybe. There it is. Tonight's live episode is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. If you're looking to make watching your favorite sports a little bit more interesting, sportsbetting.com is your no-brainer destination for online gambling in Colorado. Here's why. They have sharp odds and low juice. They have in-house bookmakers. They're not a third-party provider of odds. That reduced juice means that they have the best prices. They have hassle-free bonuses with a one-time rollover, which means that the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time, and other sites range from 5 to 30 times. And right now at sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle, you can double your deposit up to $300 on the first time that you bet that. So guys, head on over to sportsbetting.com and capitalize on that double up on your deposit. And also, hockey is starting up here soon. Go Avs, go. Let's just put that out there. I love hockey. It's probably my second favorite sport behind NFL football. So, but anyways, guys, here's the kicker right now. After you make your first deposit, sportsbetting.com will double your first deposit up to $300, like I just said.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Broncos country got hit with a really unfortunate piece of information, unfortunate piece of news from Mike Kliss earlier today that edge rusher Von Miller is currently facing a criminal investigation. I will say that into a potential. We're not going to get into what could be. There are rumors flying around that could be a domestic violence thing. We don't know at this particular point. We really need to sit back and kind of watch this entire situation play out. We're not going to get into what the legal aspect of that is, but we will talk to you briefly and only for a few minutes about what the potential outcome could be with Von Miller and the contract negotiations, and with George Paton and everything. Now, Eric, I want your just brief thoughts on this to kind of give us a kickoff to the episode.
Well, again, I want to reiterate the thing that we are not going to speculate about what the criminal charges are. We are not going to speculate about what he possibly may or may not have done. The police are investigating. They will be given their time to go through their investigation and see what comes up. We're not going to speculate on that. That is not what we are here for until we get facts in front of us. Speculation can do just as much harm as the truth can in some ways. Now, talking about the football side of things, how this impacts him with the Broncos, his future with the Broncos, how it impacts with the terrible first impression that it really left with George Paton after having him just been hired. That we are fine taking questions about. We're going to take questions. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the subject because we do have a 7-round live mock draft we're going to get to. So if you guys have your questions about the football side of things, then we will take them. Otherwise, guys, we're just going to keep going and everything. Now, I always felt that it was rather unlikely for Von Miller to be with the Broncos past this next year, basically. They have a contract option on his that they can decline and save themselves quite a bit of money, which with the salary cap going down, that's probably more beneficial than keeping him, especially at his age and coming off the injury that he's coming off of. This, obviously, depending on what happens of it, it can make it a lot easier for them to decide that is the way to go and just move on from there. That would make edge a much bigger need than it already is, though I think it's already a really big need. Yeah. So really looking at it, I was actually looking this the other day, and the top 4 Broncos edge rushers from this year, including Von Miller, all within the next 2 years can be free agents. That obviously depends on if they pick up Bradley Chubb's 5th-year option or not. And if they do, then he's a free agent in 3 years. Malik Reed is a free agent next year. Von Miller, if they pick up that option, he's a free agent next year. Jeremiah Tachi is a free agent this year. Like, they are in a world of hurt running towards the end of the rope with really when it comes to their edge rushing group. So now this obviously throws another wrench in it. We'll see what happens with it when the police are done with their investigation, if any charges are made, what evidence there is, and everything like that. Until then,
Yeah, until then, I'm not going to speculate on anything that's happened on the legal side of that. It's not my place to do that. Obviously, people are definitely innocent until proven guilty, and we need to calm down on any speculation on what could potentially be coming from that side of things. As far as Von Miller's future, there was already questions with him coming in this year. Obviously, the option, as you just said, his base salary for next year, I'm looking at it. This is per Spotrac.com. In 2021, he has a $17.5 million base salary with some workout bonuses and a restructure bonus as well. His salary cap hit's going to be $22.225 million next year. And coming into the season, that was already a question if the Broncos were going to, extend that option to him and keep him in tow. And there was obviously going to be probably some renegotiation tactics between, at the time, it was supposed to be John Elway. And now it's going to be, obviously, the new general manager, George Paton. And that's going to be one of the first things that they're going to look at. And now this whole new allegation, even though I don't want to speculate on what it is, could potentially bring another wrench into the works in this situation. The Broncos could potentially move on from him, take the dead cap hit. And I believe, let me pull that back up really fast. Dead cap hit of $4.225 million and just move on from Von Miller directly, which would then definitely bump the edge rusher position into the biggest need, in my opinion, for the upcoming 2021 NFL draft. Eric, there is another interesting scenario here with Paton in tow and how everything looks as far as the optics of this situation goes, given the fact that they can move on from him with a minimal dead cap hit and everything like that. Is there anything that you think about George Paton and the culture that he wants to bring with this new regime? This is another big stain. I don't necessarily want to say it like that, but it is a big factor to consider here with Von Miller, and it's another off-field transgression. He did have a suspension for drug use earlier in his career. Since then, he's been an outstanding member of the community and a leader within the clubhouse. But this is still a big deal. I mean, there's no charges yet, and let's make that clear. There are no charges. These are all allegations, and they are still investigating this. But with the circumstances that have come about with, even without trying to compare them, the Tyreek Hill situation, Ray Rice, Kareem Hunt, stuff like that, is there any way that George Paton could view this as an opportunity to move on from Von Miller based on trying to rebuild the culture of an already fractured franchise?
Basically, is if they wanted to move on from Miller and they wanted to save face with the public, this is the way to do it. Obviously, there's a lot that still depends on the investigation that the police are doing and how things turn out with that. But again, we'll see what happens with there. But it's definitely is it's not the way that you want to start out as a general manager. You have a star already in Von Miller as a player. And then you get there, and just a couple days later, boom, this hits. And it's a tough decision among just many other tough decisions that they have to go and put forth and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Broncos, what routes they decide to go. And WE comes in with actually a great question that's really related to this with the $4.99 donation. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
So on potentially leaving, should we go Parsons or Russo in the first round over corner? I've always felt edge in the first round was always a possibility. One thing that does hurt it is that how deep this class is. It's a very strong edge class. When it comes to those two, for me in this scheme, Parsons, I don't really want to play him as a full-time edge. I think he'd be more for that Alexander Johnson type role, a guy who's limited in coverage, has a limited coverage role, but more of a blitzer and run stopper. Russo, I think, would be a solid fit, but my hope for Russo was always if Denver kept Vaughn and Russo can take that year as a number 3 rusher and kind of learn from Vaughn and grow, because he is very raw. He had a lot that he needed to work on, and he decided to opt out. So it's going to be a interesting case and everything like that. And since we're going to see a bunch of comments here, and I didn't really want to address this part of it, but I'm going to real quick, is we don't know what the criminal investigation with Von Miller is about. There's a lot of talk about domestic violence. That is just talk at this point. There is that the police department, they have not come out and said. There's been one reporter that hasn't had his story confirmed about it. So we don't know if that's what it is. And so just can't single out that it's domestic violence because we don't know.
Yeah.
Wait and see what happens.
Let me interject here, guys. There's a lot of speculation that's going on right now. And until we see any kind of news break from within the Broncos, they're aware of the situation. They're doing their own investigation as well. They did put out that press release. There is no definitive. This is still so early in this. This came out about noon-ish Mountain Time, so 2:00 on the East Coast. So there's still so much that we need to learn from this. So before we go rampant speculation on what it could potentially mean, I mean, yeah, there's definitely issues within the Broncos themselves and on the football sides of things. But at the same time, the legal aspect, we cannot get into that, and we won't get into that. So any comments that are based on the legal aspect of that, we're going to avoid them completely. Now, Eric, getting back to football, and this is a perfect way to segue into this. Getting back to football.
Dylan Von Arx.
There it is.
Just showing some love. Happy B-Day, Eric. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. Lance is even cooler now that I know he's a fellow Beartooth fan. Hashtag
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you joining us, Dylan. And again, thank you for the happy birthday wish.
Hey, Dylan, you never know until you know, by the way. Anyways, guys, so with this whole speculation with Von Miller, the potential legal investigation that's going, well, the actual legal investigation that's going on, the potential possibility of him now even further not being with the Denver Broncos, it's time to get into something that we both love and enjoy doing here. Unfortunately, we're going to have to maybe cut down the time frame on this just a little bit because we are already 15 minutes into this podcast. But our live mock draft, guys, Eric, you have it pulled up on your screen. I want you to share it up for everybody else. Let's take a look at this. The Denver Broncos are now currently on the clock at number 9 overall. And let me see here. Let me pull this up for you, Eric.
Oh, they're going to be mad.
They're going to be mad. Why are they going to be mad?
Because Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance are all right there at number 9. Now, of course, this
really?
is a simulator. This needs a disclaimer. This is a simulation of it. It doesn't mean that this is going to be what's happened. I highly doubt that all 3 of these quarterbacks are there at 9 for the Broncos to draft. This is something that we're doing for fun, not necessarily accuracy for it. It's just fun. Things that trying to identify players that fit with the Broncos with what they can do. Just keep that in mind. Funny that it turned out this way. Again, I highly doubt that's what actually happens. I would expect at least 2 of these 3 quarterbacks to be out the field, if not, or off the board, if not all 3 of them. But it definitely leads to an interesting discussion, and one that we've been trying to not necessarily avoid, but one that just a couple weeks ago I actually told Lance that, hey, we need to start trying to be careful with how we talk about Drew Lock and everything. And but this is one where you gotta have that conversation about Drew Lock.
You really do. I mean, the top 3 quarterbacks are there. Obviously, we saw what happened with Justin Fields against Clemson. And even though he didn't, like Ohio State wasn't competitive in the national championship game, Justin Fields actually had a pretty decent game. He made a lot of high-quality throws. I think he threw 3 touchdown passes in that game as well. Zach Wilson is another intriguing prospect here. As somebody in the chat earlier said, the Mormon legend or something like that, the quarterback from BYU. Trey Lance, the raw, high upside guy, very toolsy, very traitsy, kind of a quarterback from North Dakota State. And it all really kind of depends to me on this particular situation on what the Broncos do in free agency. But now that I'm looking at, so you've got, I'm guessing the first overall pick is obviously Trevor Lawrence, Devontae Smith, Penny Sewell is off, Kwity Paye, Samuel Cosme for some reason is off the board here, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. To me, with the value that's on the board and also the need of trying to figure out the quarterback position, Zach Wilson seems to be the pick to me in this particular scenario, just because I like the athletic upside and the ability to create not only within the pocket, but outside of the pocket. He can create off schedule and still play within the scheme. He's got enough arm talent here to make every throw. The accuracy is there. I also can completely understand going for Micah Parsons or Caleb Farley here. However, as Eric has already said, and I'm in agreement with him here, Micah Parsons doesn't necessarily fit with what the Broncos need right now, because even though Alexander Johnson is on that restricted free agent tender and he is 30 years old, they already have a high quality player at that particular position. And especially given his dark past, he's relatively young in his NFL career, even at 30 years old. You can get another 2 or 3 years out of him. Caleb Farley is another really good option here as well. To me, he is the top cornerback for the Broncos in this class because he does such a good job. He's so patient in his back pedal. He can play in zone. He can play in man. Has a very good click and close. There's high athletic upside to him. So to me, it's got to be between Zach Wilson's, Micah Parsons, or Caleb Farley.
So I see a lot of people talking about Locke, how we don't need a quarterback, and Locke dealt with a lot of dropped passes. We all know that. But the issue is that he also had a 28% of his throws beyond the line of scrimmage were deemed uncatchable. That's not counting throwaways, guys. It means that he put his ball placement was terrible and really hurt the receivers and their ability to get it. I saw somebody else mention how Drew Lock is better than all 3 of the quarterbacks that are left there, and that's simply not true. All 3 of these guys are better than Locke is right now as prospects, and they all have a much higher ceiling than Locke does. On top of that, Drew Lock, a lot of things we're talking about how Drew Lock, and he's always under pressure. Well, he had a decent amount of reps where he wasn't he wasn't under pressure, and he was still one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So when Drew Lock should be good, he still struggled.
Yeah.
And I understand that it was still his second year. I understand still wanting to give him time. It's just that when he should have been good, he wasn't. All three of them, much better prospects in them. They all have much better traits, much better development, and especially in key areas, and a much higher ceiling than Drew Lock is. So I think sitting right here, and I think the Broncos as well, they would absolutely love it if they had their choice of these three. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. So, but with how the board fell, I would go Wilson here.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Getting Drew Lock vibes from Wilson, base case, one of my favorite things, just simply because of that picture. $4.99 donation. Getting Drew Lock vibes from Wilson, injury history, small frame, soft schedule, 1 year wonder, would prefer Fields. Those are valid things, but I mean, Joe Burrow, he didn't really have the injury history, not the small school, but he was that 1 year wonder as well.
Yep.
There are plenty of reasons to be concerned about with Zach Wilson. I will say that sometimes his placement his decisions can be a little iffy. Which we see is an issue from Drew Lock, but I think he's far more athletic.
Yeah.
And also, since somebody made this comment, I want to clear this up, is I'm not saying they are better than Drew Lock now. I'm talking about as prospects. So thinking of Drew Lock as a prospect. If I misspoke my words, I apologize for that. That's what I'm talking about. They are better as them now, and I would take them over Lock now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be able to step in on day one and come in and start, which is something that we've seen going around Broncos country as well, is that if you're going to take a top 10 quarterback, he's got to be the starter from day one. I mean, let's look at first off, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. There's multiple different guys that have been top 10 draft picks or even first-round draft picks that did not start day one and went on to be high-quality quarterbacks. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is another one. As of right now, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be they're going to be better right now. Obviously, Drew Lock has the upper hand in the system in and of itself, in Pat Shurmur's system, and this rookie's going to have to come in and adjust on the fly and have to learn. And just like Drew Lock did, is going to have to go through some rookie struggles, go through competition in camp, and prove that he's the better player. Drew Lock's probably going to win that. However, the thing is, what we've seen with Drew Lock here lately, and yeah, you can go and watch all the breakdowns and everything and see the improvement in his eye placement and some of his decision making, even though I still have questions about that. But the same issues that we've seen with Drew Lock before are still the same issues we're seeing now. It's not the improvement in the good that he's already doing, which is great. You see the improvement in the good. It's the elimination of the bad. So taking a prospect at this high and giving him some proper competition, and if you do go into the season, Lock wins the job and then finally takes that next step in his decision making and his ability to throw on platform and not throw off his back foot, escaping clean pockets and stuff like that, play as an actual NFL quarterback, which is what he was asked to do pretty much all year, and he didn't do on a consistent enough basis. If he does that, you now have either a trade chip or a very high-end backup, which I'm not necessarily sure that I want to put it like that, but you can at least recoup some of that value. As of right now, and given the landscape of what the Denver Broncos have, and given the draft board we have here, Zach Wilson is the easy choice to me, with Caleb Farley being the second choice.
I would agree. And the last one I would say on this is that not even talking about Drew Lock, again, the false narrative that he was always running for his life is still going about. It doesn't matter because he was still terrible. He was still one of the worst quarterbacks, almost the worst quarterback, when he wasn't under pressure. The only argument I can make for somebody else is I can make an argument for Justin Fields getting that quarterback. Yeah. I think that he needs a little bit more work than Zach Wilson does. And I think I like Zach Wilson's fit into Pat Shurmur's scheme a little bit better. Yeah. I think Justin Fields has a little bit higher ceiling, but he also has a little bit of a lower floor. Then there's also additionally the Caleb Farley, the cornerback, to really go get that cornerback. Vic Fangio doesn't have a tendency to take true corners in round one. They're typically those versatile defensive backs. Caleb Farley could be one that breaks that trend, really. He's a great scheme fit, athletic, really steps in well. Because of how Denver has built this team, they have an offensive line that was getting better as the season went on, especially to the end of the season. They still have some issues there. No argument there. They have plenty of weapons on them. They have a defense that needs retooling, of course. They need to get younger and cheaper there. You got to get the guy who gives you the best chance. And Drew Lock, he didn't take those steps needed. I understand that there's a lot of other things for it, but it still comes down to when he was needed to be good, when he had the best chances to succeed, not being under pressure, he was still terrible. And his play didn't start improving until basically Pat Shurmur and the Broncos had to sit down and say, here you are. You have 3 reads each play. You're either looking right, you're looking left. You have your high read, your low read, and then you have your dump off. If none of them are there, you're throwing it away or running away. That's when Locke started to do well. Lance, I actually think, Trey Lance, not Lance Sanderson. I think he could do actually pretty well in Shurmur's scheme, but that's not a fit that I would personally make. I think that you want to put him in a scheme that will better utilize his legs as a weapon, and Pat Shurmur's not one to really do that. So I wouldn't go that way. Zach Wilson's got to be the pick here, and that's the way I'm going. I've seen a lot of not Zach Wilsons, but I've seen a fair amount of Zach Wilsons as well.
All right, so I'm going to grab this super chat here from Kenneth Booker, who jumps in with a $2 super. What's the pick that you hope Denver doesn't make at 9? And this one's going to upset Nick Kendall a little bit, but I really, unless it's Penei Sewell, I'm really hoping that the Broncos don't go offensive line at 9. They need a developmental guy, not a guy. And again, this is going back to, your first round quarterback has to play day one, that argument that I don't necessarily agree with. That first round offensive lineman, I could see a Rashawn Slater potentially kicking Graham Glasgow inside and letting Tommy Moody develop a little bit more at right guard, or even maybe supplanting a Dalton Reisner at left guard, something like that. Rashawn Slater, to me, is at least intriguing because he's got that versatility and can play pretty much all 5 offensive line positions. So at 9, that would be a pick that I would be at least all right with, but I really hope they don't go that area. I really hope that they would go with at least a quarterback that's available. Say it's Zach Wilson in this scenario. I would rather them go with a Caleb Farley, a Micah Parsons, or my guy, and you'll hear a little bit more about him next week, in Joseph Osai at 9, because I think he can play some off-ball linebacker as well as rush the edge and be a developmental edge rusher for this Broncos team and step in and cover that Josie Jewell rule that needs to be addressed, because Josie Jewell is not the coverage linebacker that the Broncos need right now. I think Osai has at least enough athleticism to be able to do so. Eric, what do you think?
So on that question is who I hope isn't the pick. This is going to upset a lot of fans because I saw a lot of people asking about him too. Patrick Surtain. Yep. I will die on this hill. He does not fit what Vic Fangio runs at all. Now, another disclaimer. If Vic Fangio decides to stick with his more off-man scheme that he ran towards the end of the season, Surtain is a little bit of a better fit. But you still don't want him off-ball. You want him playing press. So his fit still isn't great inside the Vic Fangio scheme. It would need a lot of adjustment for it. I don't like it. It's nothing against Surtain. I think he is a great prospect. I think he is well-deserving of a top 10 pick, but he's got to be the right scheme. It's cornerbacks especially. I actually work with, at my day job, a former Oregon defense cornerback. And we talk about corners a lot. And he says that there is nothing you can do to be more harmful to a cornerback than taking a cornerback that doesn't fit the scheme.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Press man coverage or cover 3 defense is the proper scheme fit for Patrick Surtain. And unfortunately, that doesn't align with what the Broncos like to do. Now, a very intriguing scheme fit to me for him would...
Real quick, I just got to highlight this. A comment says, if you don't have Mahomes or Rodgers, get trench players. Okay, then how are you going to get a Mahomes or a Rodgers?
You got to take a quarterback.
You got to take the quarterback.
Yeah, you got to have the quarterback. Back to Surtain, though. Let's see here. Cover 3 teams that who just hired Gus Bradley to be their defense. The Raiders. That would be a primary scheme fit for Patrick Surtain, is to go to the Raiders. You see Dan Quinn in Dallas. That's another good scheme fit because they definitely need corner help. That would be a much better scheme fit for Patrick Surtain than it would be in this match quarters defense that Vic Fangio likes to run, or even when they run cover 2 man, but they're playing off ball man. They're not playing press man. If you're going to play Patrick Surtain off ball, you want him with his hips open so where he can turn and run, because I question his hip fluidity, and he's not going to be able to backpedal and then turn and run and then click and close, which is what Vic Fangio wants to do with his straight up man coverage schemes and his match quarters coverage schemes. Patrick Surtain is much better turned off ball. You see it with Champ Bailey. Go back and watch Champ Bailey from 2005, 2006, where he's off ball man with his hips turned and ready to run. That's the role you want Patrick Surtain in.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
First, let's get some of these super chats out of the way. And then we can get to the second round, and we can take a little bit of a shorter amount of time on these remaining picks.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let me grab this one here from you grabbed the Brian Greenfield one. I'm going to grab this next one down here. Mr. Castillo with $5 at $5 super. Why not Patrick at corner? He seems day one ready. Yeah, Patrick Surtain. We just kind of got done with that one.
It's not our scheme fit. Rod TV came in with a $10 donation. I'm all for the Broncos to draft a quarterback in first round. I don't trust Locke. And a veteran doesn't scare Locke because it's a 1-year thing. 2022 quarterback draft class is bad. Get a quarterback now. No more veteran rentals. And this is a sentiment I actually really agree with.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, is that the 2022 draft class, they have the potential to be great.
Yep.
They have some potentially really talented guys, but they all got to show that growth that you want to see. Now, you don't want to sit there and bet on them and end up with a bunch of Christian Hackenbergs and Geno Smiths. You don't want to end up with like that kind of draft class from it, because none of them took those steps forward. You know what you have in the prospects now, and I think the depth in 2022 is better. But at the top of the class, the top rated 22 quarterback for me right now is Sam Howell, and he is number 4 or number 5 this year. He would be behind Trey Lance. These top 4 guys, they are in a class above themselves, above next year's class. You can't bet on them taking that step up. You can't bet on somebody like a Zach Wilson or Joe Burrow rising up out of nowhere. You can't take that bet. You always got to go get the quarterback now. Now, other positions, it's a little bit different because the value of them aren't as significant as quarterback is. But at quarterback, you got to get that guy when he's there. And somebody highlighted earlier about George Paton wanting to be aggressive and everything. And a lot of things that I've heard is that will be looking at quarterbacks and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they look to move up for a quarterback. Obviously, they're not going to be reckless about it. Again, something he said, you want to be aggressive, but you don't want to be reckless about it. And depending on the cost, they might move up. But I think that, again, if one of these quarterbacks falls to them at 9 and they like them, that's the caveat here. They got to like him. Not like they didn't like Josh Allen in 2018, so they passed on him. Like, it can't be that kind of thing. They got to like the quarterback. They got to like what he can bring. And if they have it, I could see them taking a quarterback at number 9.
I could actually see that as well. John, do you got Muhammad's super sticker ready? Are you good on that? No, not ready? Okay. We'll get to that here in just a second. Eric, let me pull this up. Wait, here we go. Dennis Woods with the $5 super. I know it's early, but if we stick with lock and pass on a quarterback, are there quality quarterbacks in the 22 draft? We just kind of got done talking about that. A big thing with Oklahoma quarterback Spencer Rattler is he's got all of the tools. He's got all the traits. He make any throw you want to. He's the next Oklahoma quarterback that's going to come into the draft and be a superstar phenom. But from the sound of it and from all reporting that I've heard, Eric, you've also talked to me about this privately yourself. Spencer Rattler seems to be a head case. He's Johnny Manziel 2.0 without a drug problem. Like, he's that kind of arrogant, just a jerk. From everything that his teammates don't like him. Eric, can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
I don't know what more there is to say outside of just nothing I've heard about him has been good. He was on a show with quarterbacks too, and he was a jerk then too. Character and his attitude is going to be one big question with him, and that's going to be that's going to be the biggest issue with it. And Muhammad Mbadri comes in with a $3 donation with a fist bump.
Super sticker.
Super sticker. That's what it's called. I almost said emoji, and I knew that wasn't right. But thank you, Mohammed. We appreciate that, and we appreciate all of your guys' support as always.
Yeah, all the support. Thank you guys for coming in and joining it with us. Eric, I got to pull this up so that I can actually see what you got going on here. Obviously, the Broncos just took Zach Wilson with their first round pick, number 9 overall. Taking a look at the top prospects available, you got Liam Eichenberg, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, Azeez Ojulari, a guy that I'm not quite as high on as most other people. Javonte Williams
here at 41.
At 41, probably, but it also depends on if there's another edge defender here in this class that I think fits the Broncos scheme just a little bit better in Jason Oweh. If Jason Oweh is available here, then I would definitely look towards that direction. If he's not available, then, hey, look, there he is, Jason Oweh, number 61, Eric. Let's see here. Run it back up towards the top. I see Tyson Campbell, another good scheme fit there. Is Eric Stokes available by chance, or is he already gone? I'm guessing he's probably already gone. Davion Nixon, interior defensive lineman, if you want to stack on top of what the Broncos have with Shelby Harris and Draymond Jones, McTelvin Ajim, that's another high-quality pass rusher, decent in the running game as well. Jalen Phillips, the edge from Miami, I could see that potentially. But as of right now, it's between Ojulari or Jason Oweh. Now, Eric, I'm going to let you break this down just a little bit. What is the pros and cons of each, and why do you think that Ojulari or Oweh would be a better scheme fit?
So I think with Jason Oweh, and well, before I get to this, the guy I'm going to pound the table for isn't anybody that you mentioned. Now, somebody got him in the chat, though. I'll get to you. Don't worry. Now, Jason Oweh, I think, is a really good scheme fit for them. He's just an athletic freak that can do a lot. I want to know if he can actually run that 4.3. I think it was like a 4.33 40 at 6'5", 265 pounds, something like that. If he can run that, he's going to skyrocket up boards. You just have so much versatility with him. And then Azeez Ojulari, if you want a guy who's athletic and can bend the corner, there you go. I like him to be a little bit more muscular and a little bit stronger at the point of attack.
Yes,
he can do it. Now, the guy I'm going to, Mr. Boggins, Cameron McGrone. This is the guy that I'm going to be pounding the table for here, and the reasoning is simple. Either linebacker role the Broncos have, he fits. He's a great athlete. His sideline to sideline range is great. I like him more than I like Devin Bush, and Devin Bush ended up being the 10th overall pick, as Bronco fans know. Now, there are definitely concerns with him, just getting some technique stuff down. He's not the best guy at taking on blockers and getting off of them, but I absolutely love what he can do sideline to sideline. He'll shut that down, and in coverage too. There you go. You have an answer for Darren Waller in coverage. You have an answer for Travis Kelce in coverage. I really like McGrone, and one reason why I'm willing to punt on the edge group a little bit is because edge is really strong, and I think the value for linebacker is right about here.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I really do like Victor Demukajay as well. I think that he could be a pretty decent scheme fit. Duke, right?
Victor Demukajay is out of Duke, yes.
Yep, out of Duke. So I could agree with that there. What other cornerbacks are potentially available right here? I know that we saw Tyson Campbell there.
None that are worth it.
None that are worth it, he says.
I would take, as much as I love Sean Wade, I'm not sure he's a true corner in the NFL anymore. I think that he might be more of a Kareem Jackson type. Tyson Campbell, I don't really like here. Third round, maybe if he's still there, I'd come back to it. Paulson Adebo, I wouldn't touch with a 500-foot pole. I like Israel Mukwamu, but I think that he's definitely the fit there is a little bit better. He might be a little bit more cover 3 than the cover 2 the Broncos run. Elijah Molden, I think that this is just a little bit early for me at the moment. Depending on what he's able to test out athletically, if we even get a combine, it could really boost him up quite a bit. And I like his fit with the scheme. But right now, again, as I said, if I'm not going Cameron McGrone, I'm going edge.
And Dylan Von Arx here, who actually tweeted at me that he was extremely excited about joining in on tonight's show. Think I've been sold on McGrone. So you know what? Let's just lock that in there. Cameron McGrone, the Broncos pick at 41 overall, linebacker, right? Yes. Sorry, I'm not quite up to date on a lot of this stuff yet, guys. I'm still in the middle of trying to get everything taken care of as far as getting myself up to date on the draft part of this. Why is Will Parks not considered a replacement for K-Jack?
They're different style players.
They're very different style players. Will Parks is more coverage. Kareem Jackson has coverage ability, but he's way more physical. Will Parks is decent enough in the physical aspect as far as coming down and making tackles in the box. But the drop off between Will Parks and Kareem Jackson is so much. It's so great. I would much rather look towards this deep safety class. And in fact, we're going to get to a guy here soon that I think is the actual direct replacement for Kareem Jackson. Let's go to the comment stream here for just a minute. Parks is just a good backup. Hello to Albert Knoppers. What's going on, man? No on Tyson Campbell. So I think we did the correct decision there. Dylan Smith, the edge from Oregon State. Eric, do you have any idea who he's talking about here?
Hamilcar Rashed. Yeah, I'd pass this early. Personally, the way he's trending for me is as I'm starting to get around to actually kind of finalizing my corners now, or my edges. I mean, he's trending down for me. Just a lot of physicality questions I have with him. Right now, I'm not sure I would take him day 2, probably early day 3. We'll see how his grade ends up, but right now, I'm definitely not taking him here.
Okay, so did we end up going with Cameron McGrone? Because I thought that's where we were at. It's Cameron McGrone.
All right, I'll enter that then. I wasn't sure, so I didn't click on anything.
Yeah,
and,
no.
Just real quick, just to address this here, is at some point with this whole you got to invest in offensive line thing, at some point enough is enough. Denver's offensive line, they started to gel together as a unit. Yes, Jawan James is coming back. He's got to earn the trust back. He's got to get the chemistry down and everything like that. But they really grew and they stepped up towards the end of the season. There's still plenty of concerns with it. There's no doubt about that. But you have a first-round pick that just signed an extension. You have a second-round pick. You have a third-round pick. You have a veteran that you just signed to a huge deal, and you have another veteran that signed signed a huge deal. Behind them is where you have the issues. And while I think that tackle would be a great spot for the Broncos to go, I'd probably be looking at one here. We'll get to that. I see one on the board. Actually, 2 on the board right here that I would be willing to take. Walker Little is not one. Sorry, Mr. Boggins, you were right in round 2, not right here. Is that you don't want to put too much of an investment in it because then you just have a bunch of issues arising to that. Now, getting to this is I think this would be a great spot to start looking at offensive linemen here. I mean, obviously, you want to get a guy who needs a little bit of development because they're going to be sitting behind Jawan James for at least to start the season. If that lasts more than 10 snaps, I don't know. Well, that depends on how long it takes Jawan James to get hurt. Now, the guy I would be looking at here for a tackle, there's 2 of them. I would definitely not touch Walker Little. I like Tevin Jenkins. I think that he goes earlier than here when it's all said and done. I think he's a little bit ready to start day 1. He's an all right scheme fit.
Hey, now, can I guess these guys here just based on the conversations that you and I have had?
Oh, you don't need to guess. You know who they are.
Well, I know who one of them is. I definitely know who one of them is. It's Daniel Faalele, the offensive tackle from Minnesota here. And the other one, I'm going to say it's Jackson Carman instead of Spencer Brown because you were high up on Jackson Carman there for a long time.
I really like Jackson Carman, and Daniel Faalele are the 2 that I would be looking at here. I really like Spencer Brown as well. I think that he'd be a little bit better in one that requires him to move a little bit more. And I think that Jackson Carman and Daniel Faalele are really good really good for the scheme fit. So those are the 2 that I'd be going at. Obviously, it's hard to pass up on some of the safety talent that's here, and even again, it's hard to pass up on the edges. We already punted on one.
Yep. And there's two that I really like there, and Quincy Rochelle and Victor Demukije. Based on what we're looking at here, Jackson Carman, Daniel Faalele, but the guy that's in between those 2 on the list, Richie Grant, that's my guy at the safety position. That is your direct replacement for Kareem Jackson, so long as he will bring his arms when he is tackling, because I think that he's good enough in coverage.
I agree with that.
Dude, every time I watch him, I'm like, that is the direct replacement for Kareem Jackson. He's very physical. He does a good enough job in coverage. He can play in the box. He can play deep. He can move around side to side. That is my dude. Paris Ford, on the other hand, if you could get both of these guys, and the crazy thing here is I did a mock draft a few weeks ago where I got Caleb Farley, Jason Oweh, Paris Ford, and Richie Grant in my top 4 picks, and I would run screaming, like practically streaking around, literally, if the Broncos got those 4 guys. As far as going towards the offensive tackle, Daniel Fa'alele is a guy that I am incredibly impressed with. 6'8", I think, 400 pounds, and he's mobile. That guy is very powerful. He can move. He can get out and pull. He can get out in front and screen plays, something that DeMar Dotson could not do. If it's me here, Fa'alele, Richie Grant, or Paris Ford have to be the top 3 options.
If we're not going offensive tackle here, it would be Paris Ford for me. And I think that's the only other option, because if you want to talk about a direct placement to Kareem Jackson, Paris Ford is your guy.
Oh, man.
He does everything that Kareem Jackson does. His role is basically the same. He has that versatility. Now, I'm going to continue to pound the table for Daniel Fa'alele. Now, remember, guys, you guys have a voice here. I think those are probably the 2 that we can narrow it down to, Daniel Fa'alele or Paris Ford. Daniel Fa'alele is 6'8", 400 pounds, and he has very light and nimble feet. He moves really well. And he's super strong. He's super powerful. And for most guys his size, you typically see him have those issues around the edge, with speed around the edge. He doesn't. If he gets his hands on you, a lot of times you're done for. He reminds me a lot of Orlando Brown with how he moved, but I think that his frame and how he carries his weight is a lot better. So Daniel Fa'alele is definitely my number 1 choice here. And punting on safety, I'm okay comfortable punting on safety here, because I think that Will Parks will be back. I think that Justin Simmons will be back, and Kareem Jackson. And then you can sit there and you can look at safety next year. I'm comfortable doing that, running it back with those 3 there. But Juwan James is done after this year. Get that guy who can have the year to develop.
Well, and there's also this safety class is incredibly deep, guys. Like there's a lot of high quality options there that'll fit with what the Broncos want to do. You got Hamza Nasrulladein from Florida State. You've got Ardarius Washington from Texas. TCU is who it's from. Excuse me. There's another guy, Ifeatu Melifonwu from Syracuse. That's another intriguing option for the Broncos, and that's probably a 6th or 7th round pick for a developmental safety prospect. And he's definitely
no. Like, he would be a steal at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's really risen up boards.
Wow, okay.
But to me, I think that he'd be more of a corner.
Okay.
By the way, you haven't touched on corner either. But there's nobody here that's really.
To me, it's got to be Carmen, Grant, Fa'alele, or Paris Ford, and I will agree with you and concede to you, Daniel Fa'alele here as a developmental tackle. This is great. Yeah, as Mark Anthony says, grab the 400-pound ballerina and laugh your way to the bank here. I think he goes a lot higher in this year's draft just because of the fact that he looks so big.
It's a pretty deep class early on in it, and he opted out, so he has a disadvantage that the other guys don't have. No, I'm glad that we saw very little Walker Little, because Walker Little is not good. He doesn't belong in the NFL. I stand by that. I will pound the table for that. Walker Little is not a football player.
Christos Jenkins coming in here. A little bit on topic, but who's your top linebacker to draft? I'm going to take away on this one. Obviously, it's Micah Parsons, but as far as for the Broncos, just based on what they need, I think that Alexander Johnson coming back on that restricted free agent tender and Micah Parsons are such similar players. My top linebacker to draft is probably going to be Joseph Osai, with the intent to move him to edge. You remember when the Broncos drafted Justin Hollins in the 5th round out of Oregon a couple of years ago, that do-it-all linebacker that could play off the edge and could play drop back into coverage and whatnot? That's the guy that I'm really looking at, because I think that given what is going on with Vaughn, if Vaughn does come back and Bradley Chubb comes back, they extend the 5th-year option there. You try to figure out what's going on there. You can develop and use Joseph Osai off ball and then move him to an edge role as your number 3 guy over Malik Reed, because I think that Joseph Osai, with the explosion that he has, his ability to stand up at the running game, his hand fighting ability, is a much better edge defender 3 than Malik Reed would be.
And I want to get this comment real quick before we get to round 3. Unfortunately, Paris Ford, I saw him as we were going down, that I was hoping he was falling. He ended up going a little bit earlier. But there's an edge here, and I'll get to that here in a second. But Mark Anthony says, true. Y'all too good at convincing. Grab the 400-pound ballerina. Now, I know I'm really good at convincing because that happens to be how I got my wife.
Oh man, that's so rough. She would not appreciate that comment. I hope you know that.
So looking at this now, the one who stands out to me is I'll pull up corners real quick just to highlight that there's not much corners here. Elijah Griffin, I think that we can wait on a little bit. I'd like his fit in there, and I think that we're probably better waiting on it because right now, especially on my board, my personal board, most of the corners here would be a little bit of a reach. I'm looking at edge, and I'm looking at Ronnie Perkins, who I really like coming out of Oklahoma. I think that he has a chance to compete for being a top guy. There are some concerns with him, though, that obviously I keep saying that. There's obviously concerns with all these guys. There's some concerns with what he can do in terms of versatility and everything like that. Definitely technical aspects that need to be coached up. So that's one way I'd be looking at. I'd also be looking at trying to better your defensive line, not with Aleem McNeil or Jalen Twyman. I'd be looking at one of those guys. Safety, again, there's a couple guys here too. Caden Stearns, I think he fits really well for it, but again, I'm still willing to wait. I wouldn't be as much as I like these top two. The Hufanga, I think is how you say it, from USC. He's got major injury concerns, and at round 4, I'm starting to be comfortable, but I would still wait a little bit. Ardarius Washington, his size is a little bit concerning. So I'm willing to punt on that. I'm willing to punt on cornerback as well. I'd be looking at edge here. I could even pull up other edges too, because there's plenty of talent here.
Yeah,
there's plenty of options.
Shaka Toney is another intriguing option to me there. Dalen Hayes as well.
Shane Ray 2.0.
Yeah, right. So another option here that the Broncos definitely need to look at, more explosion on the offensive side of the football. Can you pull up wide receivers and running backs for me? Because
I refuse to click on running backs, but I'll do wide receivers.
No, click on the running backs there because actually there it is. There's the guy right there, Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver out of Auburn. You want to talk about a lightning rod wide receiver? That guy, he's tiny, but he is extremely fast. To add some more speed to this the offensive weaponry, Anthony Schwartz is an incredibly intriguing option. Picture the Chiefs with McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill with Anthony Schwartz and KJ Hamler. I don't know why I forgot his name. The other one here, Chatarius Atwell is another intriguing option there as far as another speed threat. There's another really good option. I'm not sure if he's available right now. Diami Brown, the wide receiver from North Carolina. I think he's going to be probably closer towards the 5th, 6th round area. Hopefully he's not already gone because I tell you what, you watch him,
I would be surprised if he's gone.
Yeah, if he's gone, Diami Brown, you watch it, and I hate doing pro comparisons.
You watch
No way, man! That's incredible. that's such a bad pick there for the Chiefs. Seriously though, you want to talk about like I said, I hate doing pro comparisons, but you want to talk about a Stephon Diggs clone. Diami Brown is that. Let's see here. Go back to the edge and the safety. Bring up the top players available.
Mark Anthony, it's round 3. Trickel running back. Do anymore. All right, so Royce Freeman was a round 3 running back. Okay, like I will hold on to him in round 4, but I'm starting to get comfortable with running backs. I'm still not taking one here though.
It depends on what running back is there.
Okay, no one worth it. Got it.
No, Trey Sermon and Chuba Hubbard would potentially be there, but
he's not there.
He's right there. He's right there at 99.
No.
Honestly,
all right. Which way are we going, guys? We're going defensive back. We're going edge.
Honestly, Aleem McNeil is very intriguing here to help bolster the interior of the defensive line. I like that pick a lot.
I like Aleem McNeil. I really like Jalen Twyman. Just man, what he did as a sophomore last year.
Man, yeah.
10.5 sacks on the inside. Like, there's a reason why he ended up being compared as Mini Donald.
Yep.
Yeah, Mini Donald. That's the name. I really like him, but again, for me, it's going to end up being either edge. Ronnie Perkins is there, or it's going to end up being a defensive back. Which right now, I'm comfortable punting on it, but. For me, punting on the other two positions, it's Ronnie Perkins. But chat, you guys have your votes.
Let me pull that back up really fast. I was actually zoomed in on your screen here. Let's see here. Stevenson. Wait, not exactly sure. Darab Qureshi agrees with me. Running back is a big need. I actually think that
it is, and you can get them in round 7. You can get them in round 6.
Little 5-round mock draft. Let's see here. Javon Holland, Baron Browning, linebacker, Kellen Mond, the quarterback. I'm not seeing anybody. You know what, Eric? Let's go Ronnie Perkins here just to kind of continue this moving forward. We only got about 5 minutes. We can run a little bit long on this tonight, especially considering what we're doing here. And the first 10 minutes of what we were 10 to almost 15 minutes was discussing a situation we didn't necessarily want to discuss in the first place. No, I agree with that, though, Eric. The edge rusher position in this draft is so incredibly deep. We missed out on the top guys that I really wanted, but it's not necessarily the top guys that you necessarily need right now. That's really looking towards the future. I think Malik Reed, as far as an edge 3 right now, being that he's going to be cost controlled for the Broncos, you can at least develop there. It all really kind of depends on the situation with Von Miller, lightning round, as Dylan Von Ark says here. The cornerback position is one that we really need to take a look at here, especially rounds 5, 6, and 7. Like you said, Elijah Griffin is one. The DJ Daniel from Georgia in the 7th round is an intriguing option to me as well. Diamador de Lenore, I think is how you say his name, is another good one there. So cornerbacks to me is probably the direction I'm wanting to go, or at least a safety. What safeties are available?
I'm glad you asked, because James Wiggins is sitting right there out of Cincinnati.
Ifeatu Melifonwu, that's my guy. I'm telling you. Yeah, and he has some versatility. Little skinny, little nilly, not quite the physical guy, but he's got some range. He can move around. I think that's a pretty decent fit.
I have a chance to bang my chest. James Robinson should never have gone undrafted. He never should have. It was so easy to see that he had the traits to succeed in the NFL.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right on that one.
The draft process, he was always my sleeper, always the guy I wanted around 6 or 7. Now, for me,
Eric, I want to interrupt you here. Tell me about Divine Diablo, because I'm telling you, that's got to be one of the best names in football right now. Divine Diablo is it Davine? However the heck you say his name. 142 there, the second safety down.
Well, I can tell you that he played at Virginia Tech. He played safety. Actually, he didn't make my preseason watch list, so I didn't get a chance to watch him then. And he just made it, and I haven't gotten a chance to touch on new safeties that made my list now. So I haven't had a chance to watch.
Where are we at as far as interior defensive linemen?
Oh, Mark Anthony's trying to give me a heart attack in the chat. Man.
In an alternate universe, I want to see the Broncos draft Najee Harris and
if that happens and we would be live, what you guys would see would be my ceiling, then my door as I rage flip my desk.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so great. I love it. Nick Kendall would probably do the same thing. It would probably end the draft stream. Like, quite honestly, if the Broncos took a running back at 9, it would end the draft stream, especially Najee Harris. I love Najee Harris. Don't get me wrong. Scored 31 touchdowns at Alabama this last year. Travis Etienne, I love the versatility and whatnot. But, man, like, to take a running back at 9, even Zeke. I didn't want Zeke at 4. I didn't want Todd Gurley at 9. Why would you take a running back, a position that has such little value in today's NFL, in the top 10? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, look at Leonard Fournette, who has like 95 carries for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, and he was the number 4 overall pick in 2018, 2017, something like that. It just doesn't make any sense anymore.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
So, anyways, back to what we have. We have James Wiggins here out of Cincinnati. And we have James Wiggins here out of Cincinnati. And we have James Wiggins here out of Cincinnati.
I know you're a Cincinnati stan because Desmond Ridder is your quarterback. Like, you want to see a quarterback stan, Desmond Ridder, this guy up above my head right now. That's
he is the only quarterback that I'll be paid punting for 2022 for, because he should be the first overall pick this year. Obviously, there's some humor in there. There's some joking. But I really like what Desmond Ridder shows. But no, I spent a lot of time watching Cincinnati, both offense and defense. They have a lot of good prospects. Their one edge rusher decided to return a little bit, and he was one that I really liked quite a bit. But James Wiggins, I like him. I think this is the point where injury concerns are where I'm fine taking it. Taking that risk for it. And James Wiggins has an injury history that's risky, but when he is on, he is on. I think that he is a really good fit in the scheme. He can be that guy to replace Kareem Jackson or even Justin Simmons. He has plenty of versatility. He's quick to close in zones. He's just supremely talented. And if it wasn't for the injuries, we wouldn't be talking about him in the 5th round. We'd be talking about him probably round 2, if not round 1. He is insanely talented that the injuries just have hampered. Of the other safeties that I've watched at this point, he's better than them. Of the corners that are here at this point, there is not a at this point there isn't one that I would really look at again. This cornerback class is weird. There's a lot of guys that are great fits for the Broncos, but just where they're projected to go in the draft class is just awkward. But I would punt on it. I would be looking at DJ Daniel, as Lance mentioned, Chris Wilcox. I'd even be looking at Robert Rochelle.
Robert Rochelle is another intriguing option there.
And then there's a couple other guys, DiCaprio Boodle, Cameron Bynum. Those are a couple guys, Josh Dobe as well, that a little bit later that we could probably get in the 6th or 7th round.
I don't I still don't like Alabama corners in this scheme. Josh Jobe is at least has enough hip fluidity to be able to play, but I question his athleticism on the high end side. He's not athletic enough to be able to keep up.
He's not a guy that'll be a true number 1. He's a guy who could be a number 2. And with Vic Fangio, that's a good thing is you guys can get Vic Fangio can get away with having 2 number 2s out there.
Yeah,
he has before. Michael Ojumudi, he's a number 2, and I don't think he has really a ceiling to be a number 1. Bryce Callahan would be their number 1, and he's in the slot. So I don't mind pairing them up, especially in the 6th or 7th round. At this point, you're not looking at a guy who's going to be a number 1.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's go James Wiggins here to wrap this up. We're going to be running really long here. We're at our hour mark right now. So
I'm also going to say is that I refuse to draft Tre'Tavious Atwell for personal reasons, just because his nickname's Tutu.
So, John, you pulled up a question or a comment here from Falling Sloth. I just want to address this really fast. Can I just say that you two guys have gotten very good at this? Been watching you since this show started, and you both have grown into the job so well. You know, Sloth, that really I appreciate that. I not to speak for Eric, but we do appreciate that. We've gotten a lot of negative comments towards us as far as the way that we handle our show and stuff like that. And for you to come in and say that we have grown into the roles that we have incredibly well, and for you to say that you've been watching this show since it started and have been a supporter for us, that means a lot to us. That really does, at least to me.
It means a lot to me as well. Obviously, one big issue that with this show is that Lance and I are very, for lack of a better way to put it, we're both very dominating personalities when it comes to football talk. We have no issue. We are very opinionated, and we have no issues with those opinions and of stating those opinions. And it leads to a lot of butting heads a little bit. Not to mention, I'm probably the biggest hothead there is on MHH.
Probably is questionable at best. Like he is.
Well, the question is Eric the biggest hothead in MHH? And it can be rebutted with does the bear crap in the woods?
The answer is yes.
So it's definitely a means a lot and everything like that. And I'm glad that the growth is able to be seen, because I do try to put a lot of effort into being better with how I present my takes, better with how I present my opinion, and not as confrontational. That it doesn't always happen, doesn't always come through, but yeah, it does mean a lot.
I'm going to grab this question here from Benji Clay. Isaiah Simmons went 9th last year. For some reasons, for someone so intriguing coming out, I didn't hear anything about him all season. How was his season, especially considering how highly touted he was? Eric, please break this down and how Vance Joseph is an absolutely.
Oh, you took it. I was just going to say it's Vance Joseph. That's the answer to the answer. It's Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph had no idea how to even use a weapon like that on defense. And when they finally started to figure out a way to use it, he started playing better. It's amazing how that works. Vance Joseph, as touted as he was, and I'm not going to lie, I was stoked about the hire. I thought he would end up being a lot better than he was.
No.
He ended up being terrible because everything that was said about him, everything that I heard about him, ended up not materializing in Denver. And I know that the quarterback issue had a big reason for that. They weren't able to win games. But, I mean, there were issues behind the scenes that I've heard about that he just didn't handle very well. Well, and then, of course, there's the whole having the time of his life kind of comment and all that stuff like that. It just showed he wasn't ready to be a head coach. Maybe he can grow and develop as a coach and be ready again here in maybe 5 years or so. But it's going to take a lot of work. And not figuring out how to use Isaiah Simmons isn't the best way to start that what's the word I'm looking for?
That relationship?
No, that growth, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Growth as a coach.
To me, when Vance Joseph was first brought up as a Broncos candidate for the head coaching position, when he was the defensive backs coach in Cincinnati, and I think they didn't necessarily want him for the head coach position. They wanted him for the defensive coordinator position. The thing was, everyone called him a leader of men, and that's the thing. A leader of men within 5 or 6 or 7 guys, sure, and everyone flocks to him because they want to hear what he has to say. But when it comes to leading 53 guys or 25 guys, because that's how many guys are going to be on your defense, there's too many personalities, and you can't kind of navigate those personalities. And another thing is, he's a party animal. And I'm going to say this just point blank period. There's videos of him and Johnny Bolin riding around the back of a car, hammered ass drunk, literally, like saying that Vance Joseph is this great thing. No, like, hot take all you want to. He's a leader of men between 6 or 7 guys because they all want to hear what you have to say, but a leader of men of 25 guys, and they relate to you because you want to be the same that they are and not actually lead them and guide them. So, to go off on a tangent there, that really kind of grinds my gears on that one. To get back to this, Eric, where are we at here?
No, we're picking in the early mid-6th round, and this is the point where I'd starting to be okay with looking at running backs. Obviously, Jared Patterson is there out of Buffalo. I really like what he brings.
Yep.
He reminds me a lot of Maurice Jones-Drew. He's smaller. He's compact. He doesn't have that great breakaway speed, but he can be used in every single which way. Blocking is a little bit iffy, but just very versatile. Khalil Herbert, I think could really excel in Pat Shurmur's scheme with the inside zone, letting him go and see what's developing in front of him, making a cut and go. I like him, but again, he doesn't have that long speed, so he can get caught from behind. If we look at receiver, Amir Smith-Marset out of Iowa, very smooth, can get some decent separation pretty quickly and everything like that. And as a guy to eventually replace Deshaun Hamilton either this year or next, he's an option there as well, just to better the depth of it. But there's definitely corners available, and I think we've punted on corner enough that we've got to look at it here. Robert Rochelle out of Central Arkansas, I really like what he brings.
Yep.
Coming out of Central Arkansas, he dominated his opponents. That's what you want to see from smaller schools. DJ Daniel, he's definitely slept on, being in the class with Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell. Chris Wilcox, he's kind of that versatile guy, safety corner that Vic Fangio likes to have, kind of like the Eric Reeds, the Jimmy Wards, those types of it. DiCaprio Boodle, Cameron Bynum, all those guys. They're all here and available. They're all guys that I would take. They're all guys that I really like for the Broncos scheme.
I would go Robert Rochelle here, quite honestly. I think that there's some versatility there. He can play inside and on the outside. A high-quality athlete as well. Just some questions with him being a little bit grabby at times, at least in my opinion. Robert Rochelle, Jarrett Patterson is another high-quality option there if you're looking to move on from a Royce Freeman type of role. And like you said, Maurice Jones-Drew, very physical in between the tackles, smaller guy, bowling ball. I really like Jarrett Patterson a lot. But to me, it's Robert Rochelle here all the way.
Real quick, we have a super chat here. Martin, I'm not going to try to say your last name. Sorry, I don't want to butcher it. He gave me with the $5 donation. We appreciate that. It says, love your analysis every time, Eric. DVD has a real two good friends hanging out vibe to it. And you guys aren't afraid to tell it like it is. Go Broncos.
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate those kind of comments and everything. And not too long ago, actually, I was talking to Lance and everything because I wasn't feeling that vibe. What we wanted to do some stuff that could try to better the show, better the chemistry between us, and well, we ended up not doing it. It just kind of came back naturally, and that's great. Yeah. And we're glad that show's on it because we really want to try to have it be kind of a little bit down to earth, just talking football, just talking about the nitty gritty aspect of it. And as I said earlier, is not many people don't like me because I'm very rough with my opinions and very opinionated. I don't sugarcoat things. Even in real life with my wife, with anybody who knows me, I don't sugarcoat it. That's not me. That's not who I am. That's not the way I was raised. It's tell it how it is. Be blunt, and gets me in trouble a lot with the big boss. But it's fun. I enjoy doing this show. But getting back to this, it's as you said with Robert Rochelle, is he can get a little. I think he can get a little bit grabby as well. But he's not a guy he's not afraid to be physical.
No,
he's not afraid to. He's not a guy who's afraid to come up and make the tackle. He's not a guy who's going to be afraid to get involved with it. So that's how I would look at it. Is that's the way I would go. Is Robert Rochelle? Yeah, but of course, guys, everybody in the chat, you guys have your voice as well for it. I'm
not seeing anybody that they're.
Like I said, yes, a Husker secondary player. That's DiCaprio Boodle. I like him. But if we're taking a cornerback here and DiCaprio Boodle was the guy, I'd actually probably punt on it and wait for the 7th round. Eric is the MHH bully. There's a reason I got the nickname Job of the Hut.
Cornerback here is my pick. Whatever the preference is from Dylan Von Arx. Let's see here. See if I can find another one. I'm trying to scroll through. Robert
Charlie, that hurts, man. Don't compare me to Alex Jones. I'm not going to buy into any conspiracy theorists and whatever. I'm not going to go down that road. Don't compare me to Alex Jones.
Dylan says to click in Robert Rochelle here. So let's go Robert Rochelle.
Boom, done. All right, we got 3 7th round picks. This is where scouts make the money. This is why I love the later round guys. And I don't think I've ever really talked about this before on any podcast I've done. I'm always a strong defender of late round guys. Now, I know they have a low chance of success, but this is where scouts make money. This is where you're really looking at the scouts who've dug deep, done their work, done their homework, and where they're coming out and saying, this is the guy we need to get. He fits the scheme. He's got great character. This is where the work comes from, and this is where I put a lot of my time and effort when it comes to scouting. Yeah. Obviously, everybody knows the top 100 players. Everybody can sit here and get – well, not everybody, but a large portion of people can sit there and give me some basics about Eric Stokes, about Paris Ford, about Colby Harvey Peel, and a bunch of others. They're so well known and everything. They play at bigger schools and stuff like that. They're the stars of their college team. So this is why I like the 7th round. This is where scouts make their money. This is where you see how far they are, how far they've dug deep into it. There's plenty of options for it, and there's one guy here that I see. Well, we took a corner, right? We took Robert Rochelle. Jalen Darden here is obviously the big one. He's very KJ Hamler-like, and having 2 gadgets out there, depending on how you use them, can be so stinking deadly against defenses. But the receiver I'm looking at is Tamorrion Terry out of Florida State. Mm-hmm. Pat Shurmur, he likes to have his Darius Slater. Tamorrion Terry is Darius Slater. He was drafted by the New York Giants out of Auburn. Had some drop issues, ended up needing glasses and got his eyes fixed, and that stopped being an issue so much. Don't see that being the case with Terry, who also has drop issues. I think that they'll try to work on it more naturally with just improving his hands. But he's got that speed to accelerate and take the top off the defense. He's got the size to work underneath in the intermediate. I really like Terry. I like what he can bring. And just he adds a different type of weapon to the Broncos offense that they don't really have right now.
No, like, quite honestly, they're forcing Deshaun Hamilton into the role that Tamorrion Terry could actually fill seamlessly and come in and actually have an impact day one. Tyree Cleveland is another guy there, but I don't think that he has the high-end upside that Terry does, just because they have some high-end athleticism there. But Tamorrion Terry is actually a high-quality route runner as well. I think that he's a lot better route runner right now than Tyree Cleveland is. To me, and especially given Marquez Stevenson, man, I like him too. But with the Broncos right now, and with Tim Patrick going to be on a restricted free agent tender, this is something I'm going to talk about to you guys next week as well. Cortland Sutton with the ACL injury coming into a contract season, Deshaun Hamilton coming into the contract season. People don't necessarily want to talk about this as a future need. Tamorrion Terry can fill the Deshaun Hamilton role and then grow into a quality Z receiver for this Broncos offense. And like you said, Darius Slayton, 100% carbon copy there. Let's see here. TJ Vasher's another guy that I like.
I wouldn't take TJ Vasher. If I'm taking a receiver here, I'm looking at somebody who can bring a skill set that this offense can use. TJ Vasher is not one.
Okay.
Terry, Marquez Stevenson with his speed.
Yep.
Those are the two that I'd be looking at. Even Darden as a gadget a little bit, but he'd be my number 3 here. The issue with TJ Vasher is that he's just big.
Yeah,
he's
that's
tall.
true.
That's about it.
Big, tall, high catch radius, but he's not very physical at the point of attack. Jalen Darden or Tamarian Terry that's where I'm going here. I like Darden, but it's kind of redundant with KJ Hamler. If it was the Anthony Schwartz kid from Auburn, then I could see that because there's some more upside there with the explosive athleticism. But with Tamarian Terry bringing that versatile skill set to be able to take the top off vertically, run quality routes, and fill that Deshaun Hamilton role that desperately needs to be filled, and to have some higher end upside with a guy that's going to complement Jerry Jeudy as well. So Tamarian Terry is where I'm going.
And I saw somebody in the chat say Terry. We are running a little bit longer than we should be, and so we're going to try to run it through here. No, here in 7th round, you're just looking at depth for it. There's still a couple positions of need. Interior defensive line, I think that you can get a pretty good, for lack of a better term, steal here. Jeffrey Gunter out of Coastal Carolina. He's a guy that when you turn on their defense, Taron Jackson, I think, is their edge rusher. He gets a lot of attention, but Jeffrey Gunter, he's all over the place for them as well. Effort's always there. He's a guy that I would love to pair with Bill Kohler. There's really no linebackers here that I would take. Maybe an Anthony Hines. He opted out this year, so I'm a little bit concerned. He's got some issues against the run, but he can cover. And then Derek Barnes as well. He's a guy that I'd be looking at this point. But, again, I'd really be going towards an interior defensive lineman. And the big reason is Justin Strnad is coming back. Defensive line, we might lose Shelby Harris. We might lose Jarrell Casey. We're probably going to lose DeMarcus Walker. Deshaun Williams helps bring that back a little bit. Hopefully McTelvin Najim grows. But you want to add some more help there. And Jeffrey Gunter, he's the one who stands out as the best scheme fit in the group of what's here.
Is Josh Jobe still available right now at quarterback? Because I would double down on quarterback in the late rounds.
He is.
Josh Jobe or the Gunter kid would be where I would go. I could definitely see either or right now. If you could land both of them to end this draft, that would actually be that would close out very well, in my opinion.
And I think that we have a good chance of getting it. I would go the way I would press it is because of what else is there. There's more corners that I'd be comfortable with taking if we miss out on Josh Jobe than there are defensive linemen if we miss out on.
That's fair. So go Gunter here and hope that Jobe falls to you. Let's see here. Mustafa Johnson, that's another interior defensive lineman I like. And looks like Josh Jobe is there.
Not a single corner was there. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up with Josh Jobe.
Yeah. All righty, guys. So, Eric, if you can pull back up the finalized list of that really fast, I'll run through it for everybody, and then we'll get this closed out for everyone. Obviously, number 9 overall, the Broncos take Zach Wilson, quarterback out of BYU. Number 41, Cameron McGrone, the linebacker out of Michigan, versatile coverage cornerback, can play pretty much anywhere for the Broncos right now. Daniel Fatalele, offensive tackle, developmental offensive tackle, is going to play on the right side for sure. Out of Minnesota, Ronnie Perkins, edge out of Oklahoma, good scheme fit, developmental guy, high athletic upside as well. James Wiggins, the safety out of Cincinnati, high athletic upside guy. Injuries are definitely a concern there. Robert Rochelle, cornerback out of Central Arkansas, small school guy, had a lot of high-end success at a smaller school. Really good scheme fit, quite honestly. Tamarian Terry going to be that wide receiver guy to fill the role for Deshaun Hamilton. Jeffrey Gunter, interior defensive lineman prospect to help take over for Deshaun Williams as well to add into that run defense. And Josh Jobe, a quarterback that even though he's from Alabama, I like the hip versatility that he has, even though he's not quite the high-end athletic upside guy that you want to see in Vic Fangio's defense as far as a click and close player. Now, Eric, if this is how the draft falls for the Denver Broncos, what do you give a grade to this?
Obviously, grades early on are always hard because you want to see how they turn out and everything. But looking at this, is they address some big areas of need. They got a quarterback that maybe Zach Wilson ends up being a great hit and doing well. Maybe it's in the message to Drew Lock that he does well and Zach Wilson pays out. But then, of course, there's the risk that Drew Lock fails and Zach Wilson fails, in which case that's a big bummer.
Yeah.
But you took the risk. If they both pan out, you could trade one and keep the other and get some good picks back on for the return investment there. Cameron McRone, I think that he's a great fit in the scheme. He's obviously a guy who can do a lot for your defense. He's that needed piece that they need on the defense. Even if Justin Strnad is back, Cameron McRone gives them something different. Justin Strnad being back should not take linebacker off the board. Then they get a developmental tackle in Daniel Fa'alele, who I think has an extremely high ceiling to be a great tackle that fits the scheme. Then they get Ronnie Perkins, an edge who can use a little bit of development. I mean, Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed, as much as I'm not for Malik Reed starting, switching him out with Ronnie Perkins and everything as Ronnie Perkins grows and develops, or even bringing back another veteran to be part of that group too, can really work out. James Wiggins, he's a guy that I think that having that year as that number 4 safety, if they bring Will Parks back, as I think they will, and Justin Simmons back, as I think they will, then he would be huge for them. I mean, give him a year, make sure his health is right, learn the scheme, and just develop him on some technical aspects that do need refining. Same with Robert Rochelle. If you bring A.J. Boye back, it helps a little bit more go that way. If you don't bring A.J. Boye back, then that's the one area that I wish we would have addressed earlier. A lot depends on A.J. Boye.
Yeah.
But they also could be looking at the free agent market or trade market. Wouldn't expect a big signing, but maybe just a guy that's comfortable with the scheme that can come in and help them right away. Cameron Terry, he gives them an element to offense that they don't currently have. Jeffrey Gunter, he gives them a developmental prospect for Bill Kohler, who's the motor and just always running. That's the kind of guy that you want to take late on the defensive line. And then Josh Jobe, he's a guy who can also help bring the depth because, as we all know, the depth of the Broncos got really exposed.
Yeah.
When Price Callahan got hurt, with Hassan Bassi got hurt, with A.J. Boye suspended, the depth just wasn't there. You got to boost up that depth at the very least. And maybe make it a little bit more comfortable that you didn't get a corner early is how well the cornerbacks played or the defense was dealing with these injuries and stuff like that. Obviously they got exposed still, but it wasn't the most horrid performances ever. Getting healthier up front could also help out the corners a little bit. So you kind of bet on that. And then you'd be looking again at cornerback early round 1, round 2 in 2022, which the class next year actually looks really good. So you better the depth, and then you're betting on the starter next year, that number 1 guy possibly next year.
Yeah, and to go back to the defense, and as far as getting exposed, the Broncos really struggled in the run defense, especially down the stretch. After they lost Mike Purcell, they gave up, 3 out of 5 weeks where they gave up over 200 yards on the ground, and that doesn't help anything either. The lack of cornerback depth, the injuries just in and of itself, to bolster the depth of the defense in this year's coming draft is going to be a big key here. And I think we pretty much hit on every single need. Now, guys, that is going to do it for us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Thank you all for joining with us today. You guys can follow me at Sanderson MHH on Twitter, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, while you guys are at it, follow at DVDD_pod. It's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Also, while you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle for instant news and analysis on your Denver Broncos from all of your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities, including me and Erick, Nick and Carl, Chad and Zach, everybody on the Huddle Up Podcast Network. While you're, if you guys are financially able to do so, head on over to huddleuppod.com, get your merch on. Facebook supporters, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Click that blue Become a Supporter button. And if you guys are not financially able to do so, just not willing to do so either, the 3 things that everybody should be doing by now is subscribe wherever you guys are watching this podcast, like every video that you guys see, and share it. Share it to as many Broncos fans as you possibly can, because those are the 3 easiest and most organic ways that you guys can help the Huddle Up Podcast Network grow. Now, Erick, since we're a little bit long here, I won't ask you about the playoffs, and obviously you don't care about the playoffs right now because you're so focused on the NFL draft right now. Anyways, any last words before we get out of here?
Again, thank you all for the birthday wishes. It was great being able to spend almost an hour and a half with you guys on my birthday and kept it up and uppity and cheery and everything like that. And I appreciate that. And thank you guys for that. And again, thank you all for the birthday wishes. Thank you guys for all the compliments and stuff that you guys have given us. There was one question here from Kimmy Gummy Bear. When are you going to release your top 5 linebackers? Keep up the great work. There's actually a video on the MHH YouTube that talks about some linebackers. It's not my top 5, but it's 5 who fit. Definitely, you can go check that out on YouTube there. But my boards and everything like that, I'm hoping to get them finalized probably within the next week or two and get them publicly. As always, they will be in a pinned tweet on the top of my Twitter account, so you have to go to my profile there for that. It'll be my my position rankings as well as my big board as well, which will continue to get adjusted and everything throughout the draft process. But again, hopefully by like the last week of January or first week of February, that's when that's coming out. So keep an eye out for that. Top 10 stuff, I just don't normally tweet that out. So you got to keep an eye out on my Twitter for that. And the best way to do that, as Lance said, is following the Twitter accounts we have. But thank you all for the birthday wishes. Thank you all for spending this time every Friday night, not just tonight, with us here. And we appreciate you guys, and have a good night. Have a good weekend. And stay safe. And hopefully you guys are having a 3-day weekend like I am.
Unfortunately, I have to go to work tomorrow because the weather didn't permit me to go to work on Wednesday. So it's not very fun. But quick programming alert, guys. Tonight we got the mock draft in. Next week on Dove Valley Deep Divers, we are going to have a huge show for you guys. I'm not sure if it's going to be called.
It won't be just us.
No, it will not be just us, and I'm not sure exactly if it's going to be called the Dove Valley Deep Divers or not. In fact, it should be because it's our night. But no, we're going to do our top 5 my guys for the Broncos to pick at number 9. And it's not just going to be me and Eric. It's going to be Nick and Carl. It's going to be Chad and Zach. Luke Patterson's going to join in with us. I think James might be joining in with us as well, James Campbell from across the pond, to talk about our top 5 players that we want the Broncos to draft at number 9 overall, guys. So stay tuned for that. And also, this episode tonight is the first time that we're going to do this mock draft. Eric, we need to hammer out some more finite details, but last year we did one right after the Combine, and then another one about mid-March after the Broncos got through the free agency process, and then right before the NFL draft, we actually did another one. So look out for those, because those are coming once again this year.
And just spoiler alert for the top 5 my guys, there will be no running backs for me.
Yeah, no, there's not going to be any running backs for me either. In fact, I'm fairly certain I spoiled my number 1 guy already.
I have 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, all 5. Kyle Trask is number 1, by the way. I've seen his list. Trask.
I said Desmond Ridder.
Oh, yeah, that's true. All right, guys. Anyways, that's going to do it for us. You guys stay safe and take care. Thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers. We'll see you guys next week, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, and enjoy another great week of Broncos coverage from the Huddle Up podcast. We'll see you guys later.
Join Broncos Country's Deep Divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.